This final round of questioning plays out like a hot potato. Not only do the answers seem vague, but when the question's passed along from person to person, the end result is usually, "I'll have to get back to you on that." Watch how this plays out on the Emergency Act invocation. Ms. Dancho questions a panel of lawmakers on illegal protests, freezing bank accounts, and what laws were actually available through the act. Here's the clip.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the witnesses for being here today. I did want to ask, I'm not sure who this should go to, maybe the Department of Justice or possibly the Department of Public Safety, but I just want to follow up on some of the questions we had in the first hour from my colleague, Mr. Brock, concerning laws already on the books. I have a big old list here of ones that could have been used to break up unlawful protests and blockades and mischief, and there's plenty of laws to clear blockades at bridges and tunnels and things like that. There's even laws to have individuals aid police that could be applied to tow truck drivers. So can someone just answer for me again why those laws weren't good enough to fix this problem and you need to bring in more the emergency powers to fix the problem? I'm not sure if that should go to the Minister of or the Department of Justice or.
Thank you for the question. Maybe Talal Dikaba from Public Safety, I could start by answering and turn it to my colleague Sam from Justice after. I could tell you that from you're correct about the existing laws, but clearly what I heard back from the law enforcement is they were very happy and supported the additional powers that came through the Emergency Act, such as in the regulations actually. The Section 2, a person must not participate in a public assembly, as well as in Section 7, to be able to order the services. These came really handy, and as well the financial control measures that were not available before. So I'm just letting the committee know that that's what the law enforcement was very satisfied with, the additional powers that we heard from them through the Emergency Act.
If I may just follow up on that, the financial powers in particular, I know were of particular interest to the RCMP. I have their list here of that the Minister of Public Safety tweeted out about the laws from the emergency powers that were used by RCMP. Perhaps last I checked yesterday, this was still available online and it only outlines the financial powers. So that's aside, but the point of what I'm asking is that those financial powers did exist already. You could already freeze bank accounts. It just required judicial oversight. Is that not correct?
I will turn it to my colleague from finance to answer the financial power issue. So Richard or Sam?
Thank you. Maybe I can just start and turn over to Samantha. You are correct, Chair, that the courts are always available to proceed and see about freezing or seizing funds from an account. What the regulations or the economic measures allowed the RCMP and others to do was to share information with financial institutions and for financial institutions to take action on that information if they believe that people were designated. And so the order did facilitate those actions for people who were participating in the assemblies. From the legal side of it, maybe I can turn over to Ms. Dixon.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the question. I guess I would just add to what my colleagues have already indicated that the trigger under the Emergencies Act requires not that other laws be available, but that they be available to effectively deal with the situation. And so the determination, as I understand that was made, was that the effectiveness of any statute that may have been on the books to potentially deal with it was not available at the time the declaration was issued.
Okay, so you're saying there were plenty of existing laws to keep the peace and order of our country regarding the blockades, and in Ottawa they just weren't enforced then, and then so the emergency powers allowed them to be enforced. Is that what you're saying?
Perhaps I can start. So the legal threshold is that there isn't any other statute available to effectively deal with the situation. In terms of determinations that were made in order to assess the declaration, I would pass it over to my colleagues at Public Safety and Finance.
Thank you very much. From a public safety perspective, I don't want to repeat what my colleague from Justice said, but it was not about are they available or not. It was rather were they effective or not. And as I mentioned earlier, the additional powers showed clearly that the effectiveness was requiring additional powers.
By the RCMP, which of those additional powers were used? Perhaps the RCMP could answer.
Yes. Good afternoon. Perhaps I'll start and I can pass to Deputy Duhem. But, from a law enforcement perspective, I work within the legislation and the tools that I have, with public safety being a paramount issue. When, in my normal job, I am one of the principal interlocutors between...
I'm so sorry to interrupt you. If I only have a few seconds, if you can just answer for me, which emergency powers were used by the RCMP?
Within the city of Ottawa, I was not involved in some of the operational planning and that sort of thing. But what I can tell you is that, the Emergencies Act worked significantly as a deterrent across the country, first of all. You may have seen also that within the city of Ottawa, there were broader abilities to restrict travel. There was broader capabilities of law enforcement to determine exclusion zones.
I'm so sorry. If 4
Sure,
seconds.
we're out of time.
Okay,
if you've got 5 seconds, use them wisely.
I just the list that I have online from the powers you use. Can you confirm that the only powers you used were what you placed online, and that was the financial powers? That was the only ones the RCMP used.
Okay, we're out of time. That's going to have to be a yes or no.
Okay.
Can we get a yes or no to that? If not, we'll
Should
have
be a
to move
simple
on.
yes or no question.
I'm unfamiliar with that document, so I can't make a comment.
Okay. Ms. Demoff, you're up next. You have a 6-minute slot. Please proceed when you're ready.
Thank you so much, Chair. And I will say that I certainly did not feel safe when I was in Ottawa during the blockades in Ottawa.
What is happening here? Wow, what is this lady doing? Trampling horses, trampling. Stop it! Stop it! Look! Oh my God! Oh my God! Fuck down! They just trampled this lady. They just trampled that lady.
Slots is yours. You have 5 minutes whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll just follow up a little bit on that line of questioning from my colleague, Mr. Lloyd, with Ms. Dixon. Can you just explain for the committee a little bit more in depth of my understanding is in order to violate Charter rights or to infringe upon them, it needs to meet the Oakes test, which it requires it to be, in essence, the punishment to be proportionate to the law breaking. And that's not very well explained, but that's my understanding. Can you confirm that that's the threshold that has to be met?
Yes, indeed, for the majority of the Charter rights, to the extent that there would be any infringement on those rights, it would need to be reasonable in a democratic society, and that's set out in Section 1 of the Charter. There are a couple of them that have that proportionality piece built into the actual establishment of the right itself, like Section 7.
Have you had any discussions with your governing counterparts regarding whether that it was proportional, the freezing of bank accounts? Was that of some particular, I know the organizers and the leaders of this, but my concern is that the individuals who may have been protesting on the sidewalk having their bank accounts frozen, I just wonder if that's proportionate to their infringement of the law. Was there any discussions you've had about that?
So as we know, the Emergencies Act explicitly states compliance with the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. All statutes, all regulations, all government action requires compliance with the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. It is the assessment in terms of Charter rights was that the impact, the objective being sought, which was to stop the illegal assembly, could be remedied by leaving the protest. And we've heard from my colleagues that all accounts have been unfrozen. So it was a very temporary, very targeted measure to address the situation that was in front of the government.
Thank you. My understanding was there was no clear. I have two questions. The Minister of Finance, when she first announced these financial bank freeze powers, it took her just over a week to come forward publicly to say it was the 15th onward. Was there any discussions about that? Why was that not provided to the public from the government originally?
That I cannot answer. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, but in terms of the orders, okay. Yeah, in terms of the orders, we were actually briefing parliamentarians on the 15th as the orders were made public, and we were quite clear that they had come into effect right then. Yeah,
I remember we had a briefing together. You briefed me on that, but I did think it was odd that I was being told that information, but the public was not. So I wasn't sure, frankly, if you were mistaken or if the minister was withholding that information, but I apologize.
I'm not putting words in the minister's mouth at all. What I can tell you is the legal effect of the instrument.
Okay, thank you very much. And then the minister also said that this was before it was revoked, the act, that if someone's account has been frozen, that the remedy would be to go to the RCMP. But you've said that no, the remedy would be to go to the bank to sort of plead their case and freeze their account. So which one is it? Was the minister correct or were you correct?
So I'll pass this to my RCMP colleagues, but just for the record, I indicated that they would need to leave the assembly in order for them to have their account unfrozen. I didn't speak to the mechanism by which that would happen.
Oh, I apologize. So when we had our briefing, you told me that they would have to go to the bank. That's what I'm referring to, whereas the minister publicly said. Right.
Understood. So as circumstances unfolded, I will leave it to my colleagues at the RCMP in terms of what actually took place. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
So the information we communicated with the people that the names of the people we provided to the banks, we communicated with them, and then circle back with the banks to let them know that we communicated them and that the funds can be released.
Okay, thank you for answering that. I would also I just have less than a minute left. Could you provide for the committee the list of emergency powers that the RCMP used?
I don't have a specific list with me right now, but I can tell you that I know that with the perimeter being erect, when we put the perimeter up, we did intercept people who tried to come in.
Right.
With gas or medical supplies, but to quantify everything that was done under the act, I nationally at that, I don't have those numbers.
Can you provide that list? I think it's important that the committee and parliamentarians are aware of what specific emergency powers the RCMP used.
Good,
so
thank you very much.
Providing that. If you could just answer my question, Mr. Chair.
Well, we're out of time, but if you can get a yes or no, that would be fine.
I can look into it, see if it's feasible, if it's doable.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. McKinnon,